In a tragic twist of fate that has left both Hollywood and the world in shock, legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa were found dead in their sprawling Santa Fe, New Mexico home. The couple's lifeless bodies were discovered by two maintenance workers who had arrived for a routine check, only to stumble upon a scene that has since become a focal point of intense speculation and investigation. Gene Hackman, a two-time Academy Award-winning actor known for his roles in classics like The French Connection and Unforgiven, was a towering figure in Hollywood. His wife, Betsy Arakawa, was known for her quiet, graceful support of her husband, maintaining a life away from the glaring spotlight of his fame. But in death, they have become the subjects of a deeply unsettling mystery. Authorities initially suggested carbon monoxide poisoning as the cause of death, a tragic but plausible explanation given the common risks associated with gas leaks. Yet, as investigators delved deeper, their narrative began to shift. Autopsy reports, which were expected to offer clarity, instead raised more questions. The couple's bodies were found in advanced stages of decomposition, an eerie detail that pointed to a longer period of death than initially assumed. Inside the Hackman home, the situation was nothing short of bizarre. Hackman's body was discovered in a small room near the back of the house, a cane and a pair of sunglasses scattered nearby, suggesting he may have collapsed suddenly. Arakawa was found in a bathroom, her body surrounded by scattered pills and an open prescription bottle on the countertop. The proximity of these pills, combined with her position on the floor, fueled immediate speculation. Had she overdosed? Or was something more sinister at play? Adding to the strangeness was the condition of the couple's three dogs. Two were found alive, wandering the grounds, while a third was discovered dead inside a crate. For investigators, this detail was a troubling puzzle piece. If the couple had been deceased for an extended period, how had two of the dogs survived? And why had one perished? Law enforcement officials have struggled to reconcile the various elements of the case. Veteran investigators have described the scene as an anomaly, with one seasoned officer noting, "In my career, I've seen thousands of death scenes, but this one stands apart. Two people simply do not just fall over dead at the same time without a major cause." Early reports from the New Mexico Gas Company quickly ruled out a gas leak, extinguishing the carbon monoxide theory. Yet without any clear cause of death from the preliminary autopsies, officials are now considering every possibility, from accidental overdose to foul play. But if foul play was involved, who would target a 95-year-old former actor and his wife in such a secluded, quiet home? In Hollywood, news of Hackman's death sent shockwaves through the industry. Colleagues and fans alike took to social media to express their grief, remembering the actor not just for his iconic roles, but for his quiet dignity and authenticity. Actress Gwyneth Paltrow, who worked with Hackman on The Royal Tenenbaums, shared a heartfelt tribute, posting a photo of them together with a broken heart emoji, a small but poignant reminder of Hackman's impact on those who knew him. Gene Hackman's career was the stuff of legend. A versatile performer, he excelled in drama, comedy, and action, earning the respect of his peers and the adoration of audiences worldwide. His portrayal of Popeye Doyle in The French Connection remains one of cinema's most celebrated performances, while his role in Unforgiven showcased his depth as a dramatic actor. But for all his fame, Hackman was a man who valued his privacy. Since retiring from acting in 2009, he had lived a quiet life with Arakawa in their New Mexico retreat, far from the bustling world of Hollywood. The final images of him, captured in 2023, showed a frail but content Hackman leaning on a cane, supported by his wife. Despite a quiet and seemingly contented life in retirement, the tragic deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, have raised more questions than answers, leaving the public and their families gripped by a profound sense of mystery. For years, Hackman, the towering figure of Hollywood who commanded screens with performances of remarkable depth and power, had faded into a peaceful seclusion with Arakawa in their New Mexico home. The couple was known for their shared passion for art, literature, and a lifestyle away from the glimmer of celebrity life. Yet the circumstances surrounding their sudden and unexplained deaths have left more questions than conclusions. Gene Hackman was a living legend, a man whose work in cinema spanned decades and earned him accolades and admiration from all corners of the industry. His iconic roles in films such as The French Connection, Unforgiven, and Superman cemented his place as one of Hollywood's greats. Despite retiring in 2004 after a stellar career, Hackman's legacy lived on, revered by a new generation of actors and film lovers. His retirement allowed him to embrace a life of creative pursuits outside the world of acting, writing, painting, fishing, and of course, sharing these quiet moments with Betsy. By all accounts, their life together seemed idyllic, almost untouched by the harshness of the entertainment industry. But as authorities began investigating their deaths, it quickly became clear that there was more to this story than met the eye. The day that would eventually unravel the couple's fate began like any other. Hackman, at 95, and Arakawa, 63, had lived together for years in their well-kept home, away from the public eye. However, when emergency responders arrived on the scene, they were met with a situation that only deepened the puzzle. The bodies of both individuals were found within the house, but there were no outward signs of trauma or struggle. There was no forced entry, no visible injuries, nothing to suggest foul play. The house, maintained with care and attention to detail, gave no indication of the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. The lack of visible signs of violence quickly led to widespread speculation. The first theory to emerge was the possibility of a murder-suicide. Could one of the two have killed the other before turning the weapon on themselves? This was a haunting scenario that seemed all too plausible for many. However, this theory fell apart upon closer examination. There were no gunshot wounds or signs of violence anywhere in the house. No blood, no weapons, no indication that any struggle had occurred. More crucially, there were no final notes or messages that might have indicated intent or the personal turmoil that could have led to such an event. The scene did not align with the grim markers of a murder-suicide. Next, some began to suggest the possibility of a double suicide, driven perhaps by a sense of emotional distress or the weight of health concerns. Hackman, after all, had faced significant health struggles over the years. A heart condition that had required medical intervention, the stresses of aging, and the pressures of living a life in the public eye. All of these could have taken their toll on him and his wife. However, this theory, too, seemed to lack a key detail that made it hard to believe. Hackman and Arakawa were found in separate rooms, a fact that didn't quite fit the pattern of most suicides. Typically, a couple in such a tragic circumstance would be found together, in the same room, often leaving behind final notes or signs that they planned this final act together. But in Hackman's case, this was not so. The placement of the bodies suggested that whatever happened was not part of a unified, tragic decision. As the investigation continued, the idea of an environmental cause began to surface as a plausible explanation. Could a silent killer, something as insidious as carbon monoxide poisoning, have been the cause of their deaths? Carbon monoxide is an invisible gas that can quickly turn deadly without leaving any obvious traces, making it a prime suspect in cases like this. It was an alarming possibility, given that both Hackman and Arakawa had no apparent signs of illness leading up to their deaths. Authorities quickly brought in gas specialists to inspect the home for any signs of a malfunction or gas leak. But after a thorough search, the inspectors found no issues. The house was free from any detectable leaks, and the idea of carbon monoxide poisoning was ruled out. Yet not everyone was ready to give up on this theory. Elizabeth Hackman, Gene's daughter from his first marriage, came forward with her own thoughts. Speaking with the media, Elizabeth suggested that toxic fumes might have played a role in the deaths. While she acknowledged that her father had been in excellent health for his age, she raised the possibility that something more subtle and insidious might have contributed to the tragic end. Hackman, she said, had always been incredibly active, regularly practicing Pilates and yoga, staying fit, and maintaining an overall healthy lifestyle. There had been no signs that he was suffering from any major medical problems. He was in great shape for his age, she noted. We never saw any signs of him being seriously ill. Maybe there were other factors at play. As the public speculated, authorities continued their search for answers, but the puzzle remained unsolved. The deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa became not just the story of a beloved Hollywood legend's final days, but a haunting mystery that raised questions about the fragility of life itself. For a man who had spent decades on the big screen, commanding attention with every role he took, this final chapter seemed to come with far more questions than answers. The truth remains elusive, but in the silence of their home, amidst the serenity and beauty of a life well lived, something darker lurked, undetected, unexplained, and still unresolved. What truly happened in those final moments? Was it a tragic accident, a hidden medical issue, or a final untold story left locked in the shadows of time? For now, only those who were closest to Hackman and Arakawa may ever know the full truth. For the rest of us, the mystery endures, a quiet reminder of how fragile and unpredictable life can be, even for those who once stood at the pinnacle of fame. The deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa are a testament to the fact that no matter how carefully we construct our lives or how much we try to protect ourselves from the unpredictable twists of fate, some questions will always remain unanswered. Gene Hackman's final years were a testament to his enduring talent and quiet resilience. Even after his retirement from acting in 2004, his presence was still felt in Hollywood. His iconic performances were continually celebrated, his films revisited by new generations, and his name mentioned with reverence by aspiring actors and seasoned directors alike. His impact on the world of cinema was undeniable, a legacy built on decades of unforgettable roles, from his Oscar-winning performance in The French Connection to his chilling turn as Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven. But for Hackman, life away from the spotlight was a choice, a decision to embrace a slower, more peaceful existence with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. In New Mexico, far from the bustling streets of Los Angeles, he found a sense of tranquility that had eluded him during his frenetic years as a Hollywood star. Writing became a new passion, and his novels, co-authored with Daniel Lenihan, explored history and adventure, offering a different creative outlet for a man who had spent decades bringing other people's stories to life on screen. Painting, fishing, and quiet evenings with Betsy became the rhythm of his life, a stark contrast to the intensity of Hollywood's demands. Despite his retirement, Hackman's name never faded from public consciousness. Fans cherished his work, critics continued to study his performances, and his influence could be seen in the next generation of actors who drew inspiration from his range, intensity, and authenticity. Directors spoke of him with admiration, often describing his ability to elevate any scene he was a part of, to bring depth to characters that might have otherwise been one-dimensional. His legacy was one of unwavering dedication to his craft, a standard of excellence that others aspired to match. Yet as the years went by, whispers of declining health began to surface. Friends and family remained protective of his privacy, and Hackman himself rarely appeared in public. His reclusive lifestyle only fueled speculation about his well-being, but those who knew him understood that he was simply enjoying the quiet life he had long desired. No longer burdened by the pressures of the film industry, Hackman could finally be himself, a man who had nothing left to prove. Then came the shocking news. Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead under mysterious circumstances. The announcement sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. How could a man who had spent his life mastering the art of storytelling have his own final chapter shrouded in such uncertainty? Initial reports were vague, with few details released. Speculation ran rampant. Some suggested foul play, others believed it was a tragic accident. Theories flooded social media, and news outlets scrambled for information. Those who had worked with Hackman expressed their shock and sadness, sharing stories of his kindness, professionalism, and dedication to his craft. Younger actors, who had grown up idolizing him, spoke of the influence he had on their own careers. But as the world mourned, questions lingered. What had really happened in those final days? Was it simply a case of natural causes, as some reports claimed, or was there something more? Investigations were launched, but answers were slow to emerge. Fans around the world expressed their grief online, sharing clips of his most memorable scenes, revisiting his greatest films, and reminding each other of the immense talent he brought to the screen. For many, Gene Hackman's passing felt like the final twist in one of his greatest dramas, a story filled with brilliance, complexity, and a hint of mystery. Even in death, he remained an enigma, his legacy both celebrated and tinged with unanswered questions. As more details emerged, the world's fascination with his story only deepened, a testament to the enduring impact of his work. Yet, amid the speculation and sadness, one truth remained undeniable. Gene Hackman had left an indelible mark on the world of cinema. His performances, whether as a conflicted detective, a charming villain, or a troubled patriarch, would forever stand as a testament to his extraordinary talent. His name would live on, his films would continue to inspire, and his story, one of perseverance, passion, and quiet dignity, would never be forgotten. Hackman's journey, from a struggling actor working odd jobs to a two-time Academy Award winner, was the stuff of legend. He had faced rejection, persevered against the odds, and ultimately became one of the most respected figures in Hollywood history. And even as the world grappled with the questions surrounding his final days, his greatest legacy was not in the mystery of his passing, but in the unforgettable body of work he left behind, a cinematic treasure that would continue to captivate and inspire for generations to come. Gene Hackman's career in the 1980s and 1990s was a masterclass in versatility and longevity. Following his critically acclaimed roles in The Conversation and Scarecrow, Hackman continued to defy expectations, showcasing his ability to embody a wide range of characters. One of his standout performances came in Unforgiven, 1992, directed by Clint Eastwood. In the film, Hackman played Little Bill Daggett, a brutal and corrupt sheriff who wielded power with ruthless efficiency. His portrayal was chilling and complex, blurring the lines between lawman and villain. The role earned Hackman his second Academy Award, this time for Best Supporting Actor, solidifying his status as one of Hollywood's finest talents. Critics and audiences alike were captivated by his ability to inject humanity into a character who could have easily been a one-dimensional antagonist. Throughout the 1990s, Hackman continued to thrive, taking on a wide variety of roles that showcased his remarkable range. He was the calculating, charming presidential advisor in Absolute Power, 1997, the stern but fair submarine commander in Crimson Tide, 1995, and the unscrupulous yet charismatic lawyer in The Firm, 1993. Each performance was a testament to his unmatched ability to bring depth and authenticity to his characters. But behind the scenes, the relentless pace of his career began to weigh on Hackman. His dedication to his craft came at a price. Long hours on set, the emotional strain of intense roles, and the pressures of maintaining his status as a leading man took a toll on his health. His 1990 angioplasty was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that even legends were not invincible. Hackman spoke openly about the procedure in a 2004 interview with Larry King. "I didn't fully understand how serious it was at the time," he admitted. "It all happened very fast. I went in and came out the same day." He maintained a pragmatic view of his health, acknowledging his fears but focusing on staying active and being present for his family. Despite the health scare, Hackman's passion for acting never waned. He continued to deliver unforgettable performances even as he approached his later years. In The Royal Tenenbaums, 2001, he brought humor and heart to the role of Royal Tenenbaum, the deeply flawed but oddly lovable patriarch of a dysfunctional family. The film became a cult classic, and Hackman's performance was widely regarded as one of the best of his career. Yet as the 2000s dawned, Hackman began to question how much longer he could endure the physical and emotional demands of acting. The industry he had once dominated was changing, and so was he. In 2004, at the age of 74, Hackman made the difficult decision to step away from acting. "The doctor told me my heart wasn't in the right condition to handle stress," he later revealed. It was a bittersweet farewell, but Hackman knew it was the right choice. Retirement allowed Hackman to embrace a quieter, more peaceful life in New Mexico with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. Away from the spotlight, he found joy in writing, co-authoring historical fiction novels, and exploring new creative outlets. He spent his days fishing, painting, and watching films, not as a critic, but as a fan. "Writing has a different kind of pressure," he explained. "It's something you can control because you're alone, instead of having a whole film crew waiting for you to perform." But even in retirement, Hackman's name remained legendary in Hollywood. Younger actors cited him as an inspiration, directors spoke of his unparalleled talent, and film lovers continued to revisit his greatest performances. His influence was undeniable, his legacy secure. Yet despite his retreat from public life, Gene Hackman's story did not end with quiet obscurity. His death, alongside his wife Betsy Arakawa, would be marked by mystery, sparking a wave of speculation and grief. A career defined by powerful performances and relentless artistry would conclude with a final tragic twist, one that left fans and friends alike searching for answers. Would the world ever truly understand the final chapter of Gene Hackman's life? Or would his legacy, like the complex characters he brought to life, remain forever shrouded in a mix of triumph and tragedy? Yet as the world mourned Gene Hackman's passing, the circumstances surrounding his and his wife, Betsy Arakawa's deaths, only deepened the sense of tragedy. Initial reports suggested a peaceful end in their sprawling Santa Fe residence, a final refuge for a couple who had spent their later years away from the public eye. But the details that soon emerged painted a far more troubling picture. Two maintenance workers, arriving for routine repairs, first stumbled upon the grim scene. The front door was ajar, two dogs wandered the grounds, and the silence around the mansion was unnerving. Inside, the couple's lifeless bodies lay in stark contrast to the image of quiet retirement they had cultivated. Hackman was found in a small room, a fallen cane and a pair of sunglasses scattered beside him, silent witnesses to a final, desperate moment. Betsy Arakawa was discovered in the bathroom, surrounded by spilled pills and an open prescription bottle, her body resting near the countertop. A space heater lay overturned beside her, hinting at a possible struggle or a sudden unexplained event. Authorities initially speculated that carbon monoxide poisoning was the cause. It was a logical conclusion, an invisible, silent killer. But a thorough inspection by the New Mexico Gas Company revealed no leaks, ruling out that possibility. Instead, the condition of the bodies, decayed, almost mummified, suggested they had been dead for a considerable time, undisturbed in their own home. The dogs roaming the grounds were alive, but a third, tragically, was found dead inside a crate, a cruel testament to time's passing in that silent house. Investigators were baffled. How had one of Hollywood's most iconic actors and his wife gone unnoticed for so long? Friends described them as private, but not isolated. Hackman still maintained some connections, exchanging occasional calls and letters. Yet no one had noticed their absence, a haunting reminder of how even the brightest stars can fade into shadow. The mystery only deepened when the autopsies failed to provide a clear answer. Toxicology reports were inconclusive, and while Hackman's advanced age and health history offered a possible explanation for his death, Arakawa's case was less clear. Speculation began to swirl. Had there been a joint suicide, an accidental overdose, or had something far more sinister occurred? Investigators were careful with their words, calling the deaths suspicious without making any definitive statements. As the investigation continued, the media frenzy around the story only grew. For a generation of film lovers, Hackman was not just an actor. He was a legend, a figure who had defined an era of Hollywood storytelling. His death, shrouded in uncertainty, seemed almost like a dark twist in one of his own crime thrillers. Was this a tragic end brought on by age and illness? Or was there a secret beneath the surface, an untold story that the world might never fully uncover? Theories ranged from the tragic to the macabre. Some speculated about a suicide pact, a desperate decision by a couple facing the inevitable decline of old age. Others suggested a home invasion gone wrong, a crime covered up in the stillness of the desert. But there were also whispers of something even stranger, a hidden life, a secret known only to the two who had taken it to the grave. Hollywood's elite reacted with shock and sorrow. Social media was flooded with tributes. Gwyneth Paltrow, who had shared the screen with Hackman in the Royal Tenenbaums, posted a heartfelt message, remembering his wit and wisdom on set. Clint Eastwood, Hackman's longtime friend and collaborator, released a brief but poignant statement. "We lost a legend. I lost a friend." But beyond the grief and the glamour, the investigation pressed on. Detectives searched for clues, financial records, medical histories, even security footage from the quiet Santa Fe neighborhood where Hackman and Arakawa had lived. Federal agents were reportedly stunned by the scene they encountered, with one source describing it as something out of a nightmare. The condition of the bodies, the eerie silence of the house, and the scattered evidence all seemed to defy simple explanations. For the public, the fascination was undeniable. Gene Hackman had spent his life bringing complex, conflicted characters to life, men who struggled with morality, duty, and desire. Now his own story had become a mystery, one in which he was not just the star, but also the enigma at its heart. Gradually, whispers of conspiracy began to emerge. Some wondered if Hackman had been hiding something in his final years, a secret that might have led to violence. Others fixated on the scattered pills near Arakawa, suggesting a struggle, an overdose, or perhaps even a murder-suicide. But those who knew the couple dismissed such theories. Hackman was described as a devoted husband, a man who cherished his quiet life of fishing, writing, and spending time with his wife. Arakawa, a former classical pianist, was known for her gentle nature and unwavering support of her husband. The truth remained frustratingly elusive. As days turned into weeks, investigators struggled to piece together the final moments of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. Interviews with neighbors and friends offered little insight. Security camera footage from the area was sparse. Even the autopsies, which should have been a source of clarity, seemed to raise more questions than they answered. For now, the world is left with two conflicting images of Gene Hackman: the Hollywood legend who brought unforgettable characters to life, and the reclusive elder who vanished into obscurity, only to re-emerge in death under a cloud of suspicion. His final act, unlike his greatest roles, remains an unsolved mystery, a riddle written in the quiet corridors of a New Mexico mansion. In the end, perhaps it is this very mystery that will ensure Hackman's legacy endures. He was an actor who thrived in the shadows of human emotion, a master of nuance and complexity. Even in death, he remains true to form, a figure of contradiction, a legend whose story refuses to be neatly resolved.